class. I hope you're having a fantastic Friday. And I'm back with another one of the Prince Jen chapter sets. Today we'll read chapter 30 and 31 combined, and we're going to finish our book today. So after that, we'll go ahead and start getting into some project parts so you can actually draw and write about some things at home that were in our book. So this is called Visitors to Chang'an, Happy Phoenix Gardens, Valuable Objects Given Again. They followed the rising sun with Niang Niang, the great eagle, at her side. Fragrance of orchids sailed amid shafts of light. The kite bore the girl on wind tides, up the slopes and down the valleys of air currents. She had learned to guide the kite, to fly as skillfully and swiftly as Niang Niang. Laughing, she plunged down through the clouds, Niang Niang beating her powerful wings to catch up with the child. They swooped lower. Fragrance of orchid glimpsed rooftops, streets, and bridges. Tall towers flashing golden caught her eyes. She veered to hover above them. The Celestial Palace in Chang'an, the eagle told her. How beautiful, exclaimed Fragrance of Orchid. We've never been here before. Oh, Niang Niang, I must have a closer look. Fragrance of Orchid dropped earthward. See all the people in the square? She called to Niang Niang. Is it a festival? But why are the soldiers holding them back? She caught her breath in astonishment. Yes, warriors of stone. She gasped, but they're marching into the square. And there's a man holding a big sword, and someone's being dragged out in front of him. What's happening? Fragrance of Orchid narrowed her eyes and sharpened her vision. Niang Niang, I know who he is. He gave me this kite. Fragrance of Orchid's gaze fell on other figures. I see Grandmother Plumblossom. How has she come here? Why are soldiers around her? No matter, I found her. You said I would, if that's where my path led. Come, fly down with me. I am not permitted, said Niang Niang. You? Yes. Fly if you wish, as fast as you can. Your grandmother is being held captive. The stranger who gave you the kite is the rightful king of Tang. He has been condemned to death. We have to save them both, cried Fragrance of Orchid. Please, Niang Niang, help me. I need you more than ever. I cannot do as you ask, replied the eagle. You have come to the end of your journey, if indeed you choose to end it. But I must tell you this, if you set foot upon the ground here, then you and I must part forever. And you, child, will never fly aloft except in dreams. Though fearing her heart would break, Fragrance of Orchid hesitated less than an instant. Farewell, farewell, Niang Niang. Farewell, dear child of air and earth. Only once did Fragrance of Orchid look back for a last glimpse of Niang Niang, but the great golden eagle had vanished. Jen thought it was a huge bird swooping down from the sky. Then he realized it was a kite with a child clinging to it. That same moment, plummeting at top speed. Fragrance of Orchid flung herself upon Notha before he could swing the sword. The girl's attack threw him off balance and he staggered back, half stunned. Jen sprang up, believing him safe. The girl gave a cry of joy and ran to the arms of Plumblossom. Voyaging Moon, Mafu, and Moxa sped to Jen's side, but Notha would not be cheated of his victim. Roaring, brandishing the sword, he set straight for Jen's side. To Li Kuang! Jen shouted, thinking to take refuge amid the ranks of stone warriors. Notha's guards, however, fearing their chieftain's wrath more than Li Qing's grim troop, plucked up their courage and regrouped, blocking the path of the escaped prisoners. "This way!" Mafu gestured frantically. "Li Qing will deal with those fellows. Out of here! Out of Notha's reach!" Mafu raced from the square. Jen and Voyaging Moon, with Moxa loping behind them, followed. Notha, in hot pursuit, was at their heels, gaining ground as they plunged down a narrow street and swung around a corner. Had Mafu sought to escape through the twisting lanes and alleys, his plan failed. Notha, maddened with rage, still followed. Moxa, shouting for his companions to press on, halted and tried to fling himself on their pursuer. Eyes only on Jen, Notha lunged past Moxa, sending him head over heels, and doubled his pace. In moments, he would be within striking distance. Notha tightened his grip on the sword. Again, Jen faltered for an instant. Notha shouted in triumph. It had been a long journey for Master Chu. From the day he picked up the bronze bowl at the riverbank, he had turned his steps southward. All through the winter, he made his way along snow-drifted roads, plodding from village to village, town to town, sleeping in doorways and under bridges. Sleet froze in his beard. Wind buffeted him, but he continued nevertheless. Though he asked for no alms, many folk felt strangely drawn to him and eager to fill his bowl. Some offered him shelter in their homes. He smiled, thanked them kindly, but shook his head and continued on his way. At last one morning, Master Chu came to Chang'an. The streets were nearly empty. Most of the townspeople had gone to the square in front of the Celestial Palace. Master Chu did not join them. Instead, he hobbled down a twisting lane not far from the palace. Turning a corner, he stopped short. Several people raced toward him. Master Chu stepped aside as Jen and his companions sped past. Close behind them came an armored man wielding a sword. "Not the yellow scarf," Master Chu called out. "You easily broke an earthen bowl. Let us see what you can do to bronze." He flung the bowl at Notha's feet, tripping him and sending him pitching headlong. Notha scrambled up almost immediately and resumed the chase, but his victims had, for the moment, outdistanced him. Master Chu retrieved the bowl and hobbled after him. In the Happy Phoenix Gardens, an individual wearing a felt cap with earmuffs sat at a folding table, an umbrella beside him. Chen Shou had filled one of his ambitions. He had long dreamed of seeing the famous gardens. At last, he made his way there, arriving just in time to catch the morning light. Next to him, as was his habit now, he had set up the landscape he had painted months before in the village called Ping-Er. Chen Shou had dipped his brush in and began to work. He stopped in mid-stroke. Now, if you can remember about Chen Shou's painting, why was it magical? If you said that Chen Shou was able to go into the painting, you are correct. Now what the devil is this? Chen Shou had hoped to be undisturbed, but several people were streaking in his direction. Why were they running at such speed? And what their purposes might be were none of his business. He started back to painting. He looked again and set down the brush. Why, it's Ragbag! that rascal? Oh, I see what this is all about. Chen Chou chuckled to himself. He's run off with a girl and two friends helping them elope. And here comes her angry father. In a fine fury, I'd say. He's got a sword. Now, question. Is that Voyaging Moon's angry father who's chasing them? If you said no, you are correct. The painter's amusement suddenly vanished when he saw the pursuer was Natha Yellowscarf. Ragbag, here! Chen Chou shouted. He turned to the painting beside him. Quick, Lao Hu! Who is Chen Chou calling? Do you remember who Lao Hu is? Who actually lives in Chen Chou's painting? Even when he had time to think about it, Jen could not entirely piece together what happened so quickly. First, he heard Chen Chou calling him. He halted and spun around, only to find Natha behind him. Jen flung up his arms, teeth bared, eyes blazing. Natha raised the sword for a last killing stroke. That instant, Jen believed he heard a voice cry out, "Give me no more to drink." The blade shuddered and twisted like a living thing and wrested itself from Natha's hands. Despite his bewilderment, Jen snatched up the fallen blade. At the same time, across the garden path bounded an enormous tiger. Well, that's who Chen Chou was calling when he was calling Lao Hu from the painting. Natha fell back, lurched away, and sped down one of the paths, the huge animal at his heels. Lao Hu! Chen Chou shouted and waved his arms. To me! With the tiger snarling behind him, Natha was driven toward the artist who was holding up a painting. "Hurry, Natha!" cried Chen Chou. "Into the woods! Jump!" Before Jen could swallow his astonishment at seeing the artist, let alone the sudden appearance of a furious tiger, he was astonished again. For the next thing he saw, though he could not believe his eyes, was Natha plunging into what Jen took for a painted landscape. The tiger leaped after him. Both vanished. By this time, with Moxa and Mafu at her side, Voyaging Moon had run to Jen, who stared dumbfounded, while Chen Chou laughed and clapped him on the shoulder. "Never fear, Honorable Ragbag. I don't think that villain will be back." Jen rubbed his eyes. "Chen Chou? What are you telling me? Where's Natha? For a minute, I'd have sworn I saw him jump into that picture." "Oh, he did indeed," replied Chen Chou. "I'll tell you about that later. One thing I can promise you now, he's not where he'd like to be, if he's anywhere at all." Chen Chou held the painting for the baffled Jen to examine. "Nice, isn't it? Lovely landscape. Best I've done. Thanks to the brush and inkstone you gave me. Look closer. You might see a friend of mine." Chen Chou bent and called out, "Lao Hu, are you busy?" Jen peered at the beautiful scene of meadows and forests. Voyaging Moon was the first to notice, and she pointed to a thicket of greenery. Gazing out from it, orange eyes aglow, was the head of a tiger, contentedly licking his chops. "No question," said Chen Chou, "Natha won't be back." Jen had still digested none of this when a horseman cantered up and sprang from the saddle. "Li Kuang!" Jen stared at him. "In the square, I saw you and your men, as if you were stone statues." "Stone once, but no longer," Li Kuang replied. "A promise has been made and kept. Much has happened to us. But for now, you need to know only this. Master Wu found us trapped in Mount Wushan. He told me that if I and my men could reach Chang'an and you still lived, we would again be flesh and blood. And so it has come to pass. I failed once in my duty toward you. I have not failed again. So you'll remember that at the beginning of our book, Li Kuang was awestruck by that saddle that Jen had asked him to repair. And remember, he was having that internal conflict where he really thought it was awesome and wanted to try it on his horse, Autumn Dew, and ride with that saddle. But he at the same time knew that he shouldn't do it. Well, his desire to do it took over. And remember, that's why he ended up getting taken into Mount Wushan and turned to stone, because he let his greediness take over. But since he kept his promise, he was able to be released from being stone. Jen, during this, caught sight of an old man limping toward him. Master Chu? He would have gone to the beggar, but Li Kuang raised his hand. My warriors have armed the household troops. Notha's men have fled, all who lived to do so. Go immediately to the Celestial Palace, Your Majesty. What did he say? Murmured Chen Shou. Your Majesty? King Ragbag? Something like that, Jen grinned. Come with us and bring your tiger. They gathered in the great hall of audience on the dragon throne, Voyaging Moon beside him, with Mafu and Moxa close by. Jen listened with ever-growing amazement to each account of the objects he had given during his journey. Li Kuang had brought the saddle with him. He laid it at Jen's feet. This is not mine to ride, Li Kuang said, and so I return it to you. Master Chu held out the bronze bowl. This belongs in your hall of priceless treasures, and I have brought it here. Your kite? Let me fly, as I always wished, said Fragrance of Orchid, leaving Plum Blossom's embrace to stand before Jen. Now, it is yours again. I'll say likewise for the brush and inkstone, put in Chen Shou. I painted as I never painted before. Even so, I can manage well enough without them. No, Jen said, looking at each in turn. You must keep them. All that was given has come back to me, but I give them again to each of you. Were they valuable objects when I first set out with them? No, I think not. You have made them so. Gifts? You offered me gifts greater than I gave you. Friendship, devotion, help when I most needed it. Only the sword will be kept and locked away, for I do not intend to use it. What about the flute? Voyaging Moon said, with a teasing smile. Lady Shadow behind a screen hasn't offered to give it back. I suppose I should. Never, Jen smiled back. Master Wu said it was a gift for Yuan Ming. I believe he made a mistake. It was yours, always, from the first. I think you're right, said Voyaging Moon. Happy end at last? Not yet. Those who have come this far have read tales of 6 valuable objects. Now Jen must have a tale of his own, and it will be found in the next chapter. So this is chapter 31, which is called The Tale of King Jen and the Second Journey. King Jen and precious consort, Voyaging Moon, governed happily and wisely in the kingdom of Tang. Their chief counselor was a good-natured, practical-minded fellow named Mafu, who had served his master from the days when King Jen was still the young Lord Prince. First official of the treasury was a reformed robber, Moxa, who was best able to keep an eye open for possible thieves. Well, that's definitely ironic that Moxa, who used to be a robber, is now the treasurer who keeps track of everything valuable in the kingdom. Once, long before, when he was a young man, Jen had set out for the marvelous realm of Tian Quo. He had never reached his destination, and he regretted it. He still remembered the vow he had made to himself on a bleak road in the northern province to continue his journey with Voyaging Moon. Yet each time he thought he might keep that promise, he found himself always too occupied with other matters of benefit to his own kingdom. And so the years passed on. Jen and Voyaging Moon raised many sons and daughters. The people of Tang were as happy as their rulers. They thrived and prospered. The land yielded harvests in abundance. The arts flourished as richly as the orchards. The laws that King Jen devised were just, but seldom enforced, since Jen encouraged his subjects to deal with each other as they themselves would wish to be dealt with. Few officials were needed, but they served their monarch and the people well. So, if you were listening to the last part of that paragraph where it says that Jen encouraged his subjects to deal with each other as they themselves would wish to be dealt with, you would notice that that's very similar to a rule that many of us choose to follow, which is the golden rule to treat others as you would have them treat you. And you will also notice that it talked about the arts flourishing during the Tang Dynasty. You read about that in your week 1 packet. Some of your reading work was to read about the Tang Dynasty. And remember, the arts were something that they were very famous for. They took off during that time, and many artists were able to sell their work, and they had very, very decorative places to live because they were displaying the art. At last, Jen saw that the best moment had come. He resolved to set out once again for Tian Quo. "From what you once told me," precious consort Voyaging Moon said, "we can't go empty-handed to the palace of Yuan Ming." "True," Jen said, "but we shall go empty-handed nevertheless. Since I do not know what to offer, I shall carry nothing at all. The great Yuan Ming will not grant us an audience, nor shall I seek one. I only wish to see his kingdom with my own eyes. In that way, perhaps I may learn how to better govern Tang." Voyaging Moon agreed, so leaving the celestial palace in the good care of Mafu, Moxa, and the steadfast general, broken-faced Quang, they traveled northward as Jen had done so long ago. Jen and Voyaging Moon drove their carriage themselves, taking no escort or entourage, knowing that they would be welcomed and received with affection at every stop along the way. However, scarcely a full day from Chang'an, they halted. In the road ahead stood an old man, white-haired, barefoot, leaning on a staff. "Can that be Master Wu?" Jen climbed from the carriage and with Voyaging Moon hurried to greet him. "No, it is not Master Wu," Jen said, drawing nearer. "It's Master Fu." "No, it's Master Shu. Or can it be Master Chu?" It was none of them. It was Master Hu, his beloved teacher, who years before had vanished from the palace. Jen gave a joyful cry and ran to embrace him. "Dear Master, what happy chance to find you! But here, of all time and places—" "Time and place is not important," replied Master Hu, beaming. "Indeed, I get myself constantly mixed up in them. I can never be certain which is which, where or when, and so I ignore them. As for chance, my boy, is there such a thing? Do we call chance only what we cannot foresee? If we look backwards instead of forwards, he went on, might we not discover that one thing set in motion sets all else moving? Tug the edge of a spider web, and the center moves. But I have no intention of lecturing you. Tell me rather why you have left your palace. Jen recounted what had befallen him during his first journey and explained the purpose of his second. Master Hu shook his head. My dear boy, have I failed in your instruction? Have I not taught you to avoid useless pursuits and the pointless waste of time? An old tale tells of a traveler who kept walking northward. Master Hu continued, at last he returned to the spot where he began. The kingdom of Tian Kuo, if indeed such a realm exists, is any place you make it to be. Therefore, why seek what you have already found? Jen puzzled over this. By the time he grasped what Master Hu meant by it, Voyaging Moon had already understood. Smiling lovingly, she took Jen's arm. Come, dear Jen, she said, come home, if, that is, we ever truly left it. And that is exactly what they did. So the end of that book always reminds me very much of a story like The Wizard of Oz, for example, where the whole story, the character is so concerned that there's a better place to be, when in reality, you can make where you are the best place that it can possibly be. And I kind of see us in that type of a situation right now. We're all in our homes, and maybe there's other things that we would rather be doing that aren't options for us right now. But there's so many wonderful things that we can be doing at home with our families, or just right outside in nature, or just enjoying some quality time together. So definitely there is joy where you make it is one of the themes here. And so make it a great day. And I'm not gonna put on the or not, because I want you to make it a great day. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will be putting up some of our Prince Jen projects parts. I would like for you to draw them on paper and then be able to show them to us on a Flipgrid video and just explain a little bit about what you did, if you're comfortable with that, or you can definitely just show us a picture as well. All right, so the directions for that will be coming. Have a good afternoon.